Hey, how's it going everyone? So it's time for another character review. We already did Lucia, and if you haven't checked that out, it's on the channel. This time we're going to do E.Honda. That was the second character that we learned. And we ranked it up the usual, ranked him up from Rookie to Diamond. And we actually climbed with Honda 25% faster than Lucia. I actually got the stats on that. So it was a faster ride. I feel like Honda is the easiest of the three characters to use. Definitely has the most obvious game plan, especially since he is a returning character and most of his kit is intact. Very familiar style. And he's definitely a bully character, and you can definitely exploit some of the lower ranked players' weaknesses with him. So it was a pretty fast grind. So with that, let's get started right away here. Let's talk about his strengths and his weaknesses and the things I like about the character. So in terms of strengths, Honda has a lot. I wrote down a lot for this. Didn't realize it was a huge rap sheet, but first off, he's got high health in Street Fighter V, 1025 and 1050 stun. And I guess it makes sense when you think about it that he's this big kind of brawler kind of character, bully. But you know, he always, from previous fighting games, he always had like the normal average health. So as far as I remember, so now with Street Fighter V, he's definitely like much scarier, especially with his high damage output, because he hits like a truck in this game. One solid jump in from Honda and you're like, where did all my health go? You know, or you get crush counter when you get dizzy, the match is pretty much over, it feels like. And it doesn't look like he's hitting you much because his combos are quite short, but those hand slaps, man, he really dishes out a lot of damage, and a character that does high damage but also has high health is really, really scary. Like I said before, he is the easiest of the three, in my opinion, to use, which is a strength, but he does require high execution. Don't get the two things mixed up, because even though the way you play him is very simple, your game plan is simple, doing the 100 hand slaps, the more, what's it called, harder to do combos or conversions, especially with V-Trigger 2 after your EX hands and such, is quite difficult, even though Capcom did make it easier with only 4 punch inputs rather than 5. He's also, like, one of the most obvious things that makes Honda strong, one of his biggest strengths, is his, like, absolutely stupid normal attack hitboxes. If you guys ever, like, sat down and looked at his hitbox, you'll have a good laugh. No joke, they're so insane. I think he's got some of the best normal hitboxes in the game, to the point where they're so good that before they become detached, like Minot's hitboxes. I'll show you guys some on the screen. His standing light punch, his standing medium punch, and his standing heavy punch. I mean, I'm just giving you like 3 examples, but almost all of his normals have like this big protruding like red hitbox in front of it, and you can see it on paper before the character even comes out. Like, wow, his normals are really, really nuts. Especially in a game like Street Fighter V, right, where there's a lot of, you're worrying about crush counter normals and there's a lot of exchanges in neutral. It's really, really useful for Honda, where he can just sit on his, like, you know, play without moving forward, you know, control his space and bully opponent and stop them from walking towards him. And there's barely any trading with Honda. Usually he just flat out wins. Honda also has some really high damaging anti-airs. His go-to normal anti-air is the standing hard punch, and that's a heavy normal. And the hitbox on it is actually really, really good. Even when the opponent jumps right above your head. Also, his EX headbutt and heavy headbutt, one has armor, the other one outright invincible to air attacks, and they have excellent knockback, which is important for Honda. So when he does anti-air you, he gets a lot of space from the opponent, and then he can go from there what he wants to do, which is great when you're doing anti-airs. Some anti-airs, you don't really knock the opponent far, right? So you're still in the threat of a jump right away, right? But Honda kind of wants you to jump, just because it's so strong. The headbutt, like in Street Fighter 4, the anti-air headbutt was the light headbutt, but in Street Fighter 5, it's the heavy headbutt. So just a lot of damage altogether with the character. Speaking of headbutt, it's a great bully tool. It's basically his main tool. And the whole idea of Honda is just to chip you down and build up gray health. And his light headbutt is only -4, but of course Capcom puts Honda at the perfect distance, where he's pretty much out of range on many attacks, so you can't really punish it, unless of course you have like a super, for example, or some kind of really strong EX move. But for the most part, Honda's gonna bully you with light headbutts. And it kind of puts Honda in this conditioning situation where, because of his absurd hitboxes on his normal attacks, if you try to punish Honda anyways, or try to attack him because you think it's your turn because he's -4, right? He'll end up hitting you anyways with his light punch and whip punishing you. Or if you do have an attack that can stop him from pressing light punch, then he has other options such as EX headbutt because it has armor, which will hit you anyways. You'll try to jump over him after, but then he has butt slam. So it's kind of this weird meta with the character, and he definitely is a bully character, and if you don't stop him soon, you're just going to get chipped and chipped away, and if you get hit once, you get put into the corner. EX headbutt having armor is also pretty powerful against zoners. I was really surprised when I saw the trailer that Honda had, and his EX headbutt had armor this time around. So I thought that would be a little too crazy against zoners, but it's not that insane because once again, it still takes meter. But there's a lot of characters in this game that they'll try to keep you out with normal attacks and stuff, and Honda doesn't really care about that. He can just EX headbutt right through because the EX headbutt is very fast. It's very good against pressure. If Honda's in the corner, he can just EX headbutt his way out. It's like a more scarier, faster version than Alex's EX elbow, I would say. So he's got more options there. Also, he can auto-correct it. If you try to jump over Honda, it's really fast and can auto-correct and hit on the other side. So butt slam. For some reason, this is -2 on block, and Honda, he kind of backdashes a little bit after you block it. I don't know what that's about. Once again, it kind of puts Honda in that exact same range that he is after the light headbutt. So it's kind of like, pick your poison on which bully move you want. But it is punishable in cross-up. It's -4. But then the EX butt slam is +5 on block. What's going on here? And it's a -2 cross-up, so it's relatively safe. And yeah, when you make EX butt slam +5 on block and normal butt slam, non-cross-up, -2 on block, you're going to encourage some degenerate gameplay, and that's exactly what you see online. Is a lot of butt slams, and it's up to you to punish it. I know it's susceptible to low-profile attacks. You really have to have your anti-airs on point, but it kind of hits at those weird angles. Now, for Honda's command throw, now it being a command throw on its own, would usually be a strength. It's a little on the slower side. It's got 7 frame startup. That's not really the strength of his command grab, and you don't even get Oki off of it. What makes it strong is just the fact that Honda has this ridiculous 50-50 mix-up with his target combo, where he goes standing medium punch into down forward hard kick. And if you watch the video that Mir released last week, he can carry this into his command grab. And it creates this weird 50-50. So if the opponent thinks the stomp kick is coming down, and they try to block it, you can carry cancel to his command grab. And if they try to jump out, you can let the stomp rock, and the stomp will hit him, and then you can combo after. So it's like a true 50-50 if Honda ever gets close to you, and he gets able to pull it off. You're basically forced to V reversal or guess, especially if he crosses you up. So it makes him really scary because Honda already is this character that bullies you down, but he also has the threat of a very powerful command grab, and the EX version does have a lot of range. And it also works well, it's intuitive with Honda's kit, because once the opponent becomes so conditioned from blocking headbutts, and he's really scared to press a button back because he has to worry about standing light punch, butt slam, or EX headbutt, then Honda gets opportunities to dash in and then command grab them, and when they get really passive. Now, one of Honda's biggest strengths, actually, besides his absurd hitboxes on his normals, is his V-triggers. They are both very, very powerful and both very, very meta. Both V-triggers have insane comeback factor, insane damage, and they're also very good when you activate into them. So there's a lot of V-triggers in this game, especially with the low-tier characters, where even if they land a hit on you, and then they do their V-trigger combo, it's not a big deal. There's a ton of scaling. It's whatever. But with Honda, it could be death. If he crush counters you with an activation, you could be dead, because he'll throw you into the corner, and you'll be put into true 50-50s, or you'll be stunned, and then stun is death with Honda. His V-trigger 1 also has absurd burst damage if you have his super on deck, because the headbutt goes into the other headbutt into the super, and it's like more than half your health in seconds. So, on top of this, having high health in general, 1025 health, he's always in relatively good shape when he activates these V-trigger. So, I would say out of the 3 characters, Honda has definitely the most powerful V-triggers out of the 3. Okay, let's talk about weaknesses now. I'm being a little picky about this. Couldn't really figure out too many. But 1, he's slow, of course. He's a charge character without much sticking power. Once you get into that kind of medium punch range, Honda doesn't really have much conversions. His 100 hand slaps don't go too far. They're not fast startup. Even if you carry cancel a standing medium punch, you really can't do much off of it. You're pretty much limited to forward hard kick, right, or light headbutt. Capcom really wants you to use those light headbutt. They really want to make you susceptible to jumps and neutral jumps when you're kind of at that medium range. It's mostly where Honda's really close or somewhat far where he really shines. So with that being said, it's hard when the opponent has a really good life lead on Honda for Honda to make that comeback without the V-trigger. He definitely relies on V-trigger to get those comebacks. And that's a problem, especially since Honda's a charge character. And once they jump away, you need to walk forward, and thus you lose your charge. You don't have a sonic boom to guide you on your way as you're trying to close in on your opponent. Even though his anti-airs are strong, and he can even autocorrect the EX headbutt, like I said, if the opponent crosses you up, he is still under huge pressure when he's knocked down from jump-ins. So when you knock Honda down and then you jump in on there, he really doesn't have no options. The armor doesn't start up to the 3rd frame. The headbutt starts up really, really slow in general. It's only good at anti-air when you're in neutral. Once you're knocked down, you're in trouble because Honda doesn't have a true reversal. And because he's a charge character, he's much more susceptible to cross-ups in general. And of course, you lose your charge if the opponent is successful on that. So once Honda gets knocked down, he's definitely in trouble. And plus, his command grab, like I said, is slow. His EX is 5 frame startup though, but his normal ones are 7, so his options are very limited. Another thing too, like I said, even though he's a very simple character, there can also be a weakness. He's quite linear. So outside of his V trigger, if the opponent knows the matchup really well, there are definitely clear-cut ways to stop Honda's pressure. More and more people are figuring out more and more weaknesses with like the butt slam stuff. So Honda has to really condition the opponent, and he has to make the right reads. Every time he does a headbutt, he's susceptible to a neutral jump, right? Every time he does the butt slam, if he crosses up, he could be punished for it, or anti-air, or hit by a low-profile attack. So, and if he does an EX headbutt, the opponent literally can dash in and get a full combo. Like, he's more than minus 20. It's insane. So, even though he is a bully, everything he does is basically some type of risk to it. It's degenerate where you can do like massive butt slams and the opponent doesn't know what you're doing, but if he does know the matchup well, there's definitely risk involved. So good thing he has a lot of health. Another thing too is his V-skill is really slow. I'm not a fan of his V-skill. I like the combos into the V-skill, but the V-skill by itself, I mean, the startup could be a little faster, man. Capcom definitely showed some restraint there. It's not, I mean, I'm not asking it to be like Nash V-skill fast, but you know, it's mostly made for against zoners, and yeah, you can cancel it into headbutt, but I mean, most of the time you're using EX headbutt to get by zoners. So because you're relying on your meter to deal with zoners, and you know, you don't have infinite meter, his V-skill, it just basically has problems against zoners. Even though he has options, he still will have problems, I'd say. I think his V-skill should be a little bit faster. You basically have to anticipate it, especially when you're at that mid-range with the opponent. Finally, his standing hard punch, it won't cancel at mid or max range when you do the chop. So Capcom definitely showed some restraint here. They could have easily made his hard punch cancel every range, and that would have made him devastating, because sometimes when you land a jump in with Honda, you'll be just a little too far when you do your heavy punch to cancel into hands, or when you do EX hands into V trigger 2, you'll be just a little too far to do another heavy punch into hands. So Capcom definitely shows some restraint there, and that holds the character back a little bit, because if he doesn't get that optimal range, he loses out on a lot of damage, which would hurt. So my final thoughts is, obviously Honda is quite strong. I do think he's strong. He obviously has more strengths than weaknesses, as you can tell with the list I gave you guys. But with all that being said, you know, it really sounds like I'm hyping up Honda, but he definitely has bad matchups. He definitely has some clear-cut weaknesses, and I feel like he's a character that really abuses the fact that the opponent doesn't know how to deal with him. So I know that Storm Kubo is picking him up, so I'm really excited to see him in tournament play. But I really wonder how Honda is going to do in tournament play against players that do their homework, because he is quite linear, and yeah, he might not have enough tools to really open the opponent up if they're really good at keeping him out. So I'm really interested to see where Honda lands. But in the online universe, Honda is king. Very, very strong. Very online ready, I would say. He gets pretty degenerate sometimes, but he's a blast to play. I think he's an excellent character for beginners, especially players that are getting to Street Fighter V a little late, or if you want to learn a charge character. But it can also be very challenging too, especially for veterans with his high 100 hand slap execution. Even though it's 4 inputs, he still has some quite difficult combos if your execution is on point, and if you're only playing on pad and not on joystick. So, and you know, it never feels like you've lost with Honda because his V triggers are also very powerful as well. So, which is a good feeling. You know, you don't want to feel like it's over. So, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Honda, guys. I really like what they did with him in Street Fighter V. Let me know in the comments below how you guys feel about Honda. How strong is he? Is he the strongest of the 3? Or if he's a little weaker than people think he is, and maybe people will really exploit this character once they start understanding his matchup better. Be sure to like the video, guys, and of course subscribe to the channel. And once I get enough playtime here with Poison, she'll be the last review I do. So, till then, guys, take care.